Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the one rook checkmate. As we discussed in the last class, we have made a checkmate with the queen and the king combination, right? In that situation also, the kings, if you look at two kings are facing each other. Means they are in the opposition. When the kings are in the opposition, the front side squares will be controlled by the king and the back side squares will be controlled by the rook. Like in the last position we have controlled the backside with the queen, but not only the queen, even the rook also can control the backside line. How do we do that? All the three squares are in the 8th rank, so if you simply send your rook into the 8th rank, it will become a checkmate to the opponent king. So simply rook goes to the f8 and it's a mate. Okay, now we saw the simple and basic checkmate right now. Okay, but whenever you want to do the rook and king checkmate, make sure that your two kings, your king and your opponent king, should be in the same line facing each other. Okay, and when your king is on d file, okay, and your opponent king also has to be on the d file itself, and e file should be empty. You should not place your rook in the e file, but you can place your rook from f file to h file. It doesn't matter. Like you can send it to the f8 square, it's a mate, g8 square, it's a mate, or h8 square, it's a mate. Means I'm just telling you, if the rook is not in the f file, even you can send the rook. If it is in the g file, you can send it to the g8 or you can send it into the h8. It doesn't change anything, but you should not place it in the e file. That's it. Because of this king can control one step right side, one step left side. Okay, so here even we can't place the rook in the c file also, but after that you can place it in the b file or even you can place it on the a file also. So either you're like so this is the minimum distance which we have to maintain with our opponent king. So if you have one square distance, that is sufficient, but make sure that you're not placing your king and the rook into the very next squares. So that is not correct pattern. Okay, so let me just modify this position a little bit, and our opponent king is on the d1. So in this position, the two kings are in the opposition. So when the kings are in the opposition, if you just simply uh, control the backside with your rook, it will become a mate. So let me give you a similar one. So what you have to do, you just have to control the backside. That's it. So here, it's a white to play and checkmate in one move. Rook goes to the h1 and it's a mate. So until now everything is fine. When your opponent king is in front of your king, you can do the mate. But when your opponent king is in the L shape to your king, that is a problem. So here, if you follow these simple steps, you can do the checkmate with your king and the rook very easily. So here what we have to do. Um, as we discussed, when we want to do the mate, this king should be in the d file and our rook should be in the f file. So this line should be empty. Okay, and if you move your king into the e6, you're placing your king and the rook in the very next files, so that is not possible to do the mate. So that is the first problem. And one more problem is, when you move the king to e6, this king can get out from the opposition. Again, what if you come here? Again he'll come back to the e8. So if you again come here, he'll just play like this, or else he'll just try to move him away from it. So when you take again the opposition, what will happen? This king will try to escape through dh square. So the game will continue for some time like this only. So it is not necessary to us. Okay, simply if you follow these steps, you can bring your opponent king in front of your king. So when you have done that one, you can do the mate in just a move. So here, whenever you want to do a checkmate properly, you should know your opponent king's mobility. Here, okay, let's see the black king's mobility first of all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 squares is the black king's mobility right now. But in this 5 squares, our king is controlling c7 and d7 and e7. Even it is controlling c7 also. Okay, so opponent king have 3 squares left. Okay, so our rook is controlling these 2 squares. Now opponent king is left with only 1 square, so that is in front of our king. If it is a black to play, and he'll come in front of us, and as we discussed, the front side will be controlled by the king, and you will control the back with your rook by sending rook f8. Okay, it will become a mate. But what if it is not a black to play? Okay, so he have a good time, and it is not a black to play, it's a white to play. So what we have to do is, no need to take tension about anything. Do not move the king, do not touch the king. Your king is placed perfectly. Okay, so here you have to use your rook, and you should waste a move. So how do you waste it? When you, what is your rook is doing right now? Right now it is controlling the f file. Okay, so that it is blocking the opponent king to travel anywhere. Okay, so it has to do the same job when it moves also. Okay, so we will move 1 step or 2 steps or 3 steps or all the way in opposite direction to the opponent king, but still this rook is controlling this f7 and f8 squares. So we will call this kind of move as a waiting move. So whenever you take a waiting move, this opponent king is forced to move into his one and only square. When he moves into the d8, now simply your rook goes to the f8 and it's a mate. So right now we saw two patterns of doing checkmate, right? One is basic mate, and the another one is by taking a waiting move we are doing the mate. So now I'll just change this one little bit. So this is the position. Now the king is on the left side. Okay, so still in the L shape. So what we have to do, the king is already controlling 2 and 3. So this rook is controlling 2. Okay, so you should bring this king in front of your king. How do we do that? We have to move our rook in the opposite direction of the opponent king. Opponent king is on the left side, right? So now you have to move your rook into the right side so that it can do the same job. Right now this rook is controlling the 8th rank. When it moves, still it will control the 8th rank itself. Then the opponent king is forced to move to the a6. Then rook goes to the a8 and it's a mate. So even let's place the kings in this direction. Okay, what if your rook already in the corner, already is in the edge, so it can't go any squares backwards. So right now what we do is we have to still do the mate by making a waiting move. So that is compulsory now. Okay, but you can take a waiting move in a forward manner also. Okay, sometimes when you take the waiting move in a forward manner. If you misplace that piece into the near the king and all, the king will capture it. So that's why I told you to move it in the opposite direction. But you can simply move this rook one step forward. That's it, not more than that. If you move it one step forward, still that rook is controlling the g8 and h8 squares. King is controlling the g7, g6 and g5 squares. Now this blocking is forced you to move to the h6. When the king comes to the h6, what is the answer? The answer is queen to h8, rook to h8. It's a mate. So now I'll give you some examples, Rana. I'll give you some positions, and all of you have to solve those positions on your own boards. Okay.